People walked past the small food cart on the corner without realizing the storm quietly gathering behind its polished metal frame. The man running at a calm black vendor with steady eyes looked like just another worker trying to make a living. But beneath the surface, a dangerous game of corruption and intimidation was about to unfold. It began with a police cruiser rolling slowly to a stop, too slowly to be routine. The officer inside didn't come for food. He came with a smirk, a threat, and a demand that carried the weight of countless abuses buried in the shadows of the city. The vendor knew this wasn't random. He also knew this wasn't the first time vulnerable business owners were targeted. But what made this moment different was something the officer could never have imagined. The man he saw as powerless wasn't powerless at all. He wasn't even a vendor. He was someone whose real identity would turn the entire scheme upside down and expose a truth far uglier than a single corrupt cop. And as the officer leaned closer, demanding money, justification, and submission, the entire city was about to learn what happens when the wrong person tries to prey on the right. Man, watch until the end. Wait a second. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more powerful and inspiring stories just like this one. For weeks, Marcus Hill had stood behind the food cart wearing the same simple apron and easy smile to the public. He was just a friendly street vendor who made remarkable grilled sandwiches and poured sweet iced tea that kept people coming back. He chatted politely, remembered regular customers by name, and blended in so naturally that he felt like part of the neighborhood's daily rhythm. But his real life was nothing like the quiet routine he portrayed. Marcus was a federal marshal embedded deep undercover to investigate a corruption ring rumored to be using uniformed officers to extort small minority-owned businesses. The pattern was subtle, too subtle for formal complaints to gain traction. Victims felt afraid, unheard, or convinced nothing would happen if they spoke out. Some even feared retaliation. So Marcus volunteered to take the assignment, determined to uncover the truth from the inside the food cart. The false identity, the quiet presence on the street, they were all part of his cover. The area had seen a rise in complaints from vendors about mysteriously consistent fees demanded without receipts or explanations. What made it worse was that most of the victims shared a similar profile: Black, Hispanic, or immigrants who relied on their businesses to stay afloat. Marcus knew the tactic wasn't random. It was calculated, a quiet system thriving in silence. Every day he observed the surroundings, noted suspicious patterns, and waited for the moment when the extortionists would strike. Nothing happened during the first days. Then the second week passed with only whispers of fear among nearby vendors. But on a humid Thursday morning, Marcus noticed conversations quieting at the sight of a specific patrol car. Vendors lowered their heads, avoided eye contact, and appeared tense. That was when he knew the moment he had been waiting for had finally arrived. It began with a shadow falling across his cart. Marcus had just refilled a tray of ingredients when he noticed the energy shift, subtle but unmistakable. A police cruiser approached, creeping along the curb as if choosing its next move with intent. Rather than duty, the car stopped right in front of him. Vendors nearby quickly looked away, pretending to be busy. Their reactions told Marcus everything. This officer wasn't here to serve or protect. He was here for something else. The door opened. An Officer Raymond Locke stepped out, radiating the kind of confidence that came from years of unchecked authority. His walk was slow, his chin-raised eyes scanning the cart as if already calculating his price. Marcus recognized the type instantly. An officer who believed the badge gave him power, not responsibility. Without greeting him, Locke circled the cart, inspecting it with exaggerated scrutiny. He pointed at a harmless equipment tag, raised an eyebrow, and shook his head like he had discovered something criminal. Marcus stayed calm. He had to. This moment was the reason he was here. Locke leaned closer, voice low but sharp enough to cut. He mentioned violations, permits, and safety concerns, all vague, none real. Marcus listened quietly, letting the officer build his performance. Then Locke made the pivot Marcus had expected. He suggested that a small weekly fee could keep things smooth. He framed it as a helpful arrangement, one that would prevent Marcus from facing unnecessary inspections. or disruptions. The language was polite. The threat was not. Marcus recognized the weight behind the words. It wasn't about money, it was about control, dominance, and the silent oppression. So many vendors had been forced to swallow. Marcus kept his expression neutral, as if hearing this for the first time. He asked a few innocent questions, enough to push Locke into elaborating. Locke grew bolder, lowering his voice further as he outlined how other vendors paid without complaint, how the protection fee ensured peace, and how refusing could bring trouble. No one wanted. Every sentence, Locke whispered, was another nail in the coffin of his own career. Marcus didn't need these admissions. He already had a hidden microphone recording everything, but he needed Locke to reveal just how deep the corruption ran. As Locke spoke, Marcus noticed two more officers parked down the block watching. This wasn't a lone act. It was a network, a coordinated pattern designed to exploit those least likely to fight back. Marcus felt a heat rising in his chest, not from fear, but from anger. Anger for every vendor who had been forced to choose between feeding their families and paying off the very people sworn to protect them. Anger for every silence born out of survival. Anger for every injustice hidden under the disguise of authority. But he stayed still, letting Locke finish his pitch, letting him believe he held the power, because the moment of truth was coming, and when it landed, it would shatter everything Locke thought he controlled. When Locke finally finished outlining his threats and demands, he crossed his arms and waited for Marcus to submit. The pause between them felt heavy. Vendors nearby cautiously peeked, sensing a confrontation brewing. The wind seemed to still, even the sounds of traffic faded into the background. Then Marcus reached beneath the cart, not for money as Locke expected, but for a simple black badge case hidden under a towel. He opened it slowly. The gold shone brighter than the sun, reflecting off the metal counter, the badge of a United States federal marshal. Locke's confident smirk collapsed instantly. His posture shifted, shoulders stiffening as realization hit him. Like a blow, Marcus remained calm, his voice level and unshaken, as he revealed who he truly was and explained that the entire conversation, the threats, the demands, the extortion, had been recorded from the moment Locke stepped out of the cruiser. Locke stuttered, searching for excuses, but none came. The two officers down the block froze, unsure whether to intervene or disappear. Marcus lifted his gaze toward them, nodding once. Unmarked cars rolled in within seconds, his backup position for weeks, waiting for this exact moment. What followed was swift and unavoidable. Locke was surrounded, disarmed, and placed in cuffs. His world of intimidation crumbled before every vendor he once terrorized. And for the first time in years, the street felt safe. In the days that followed, the news spread quickly, not just about Locke's arrest, but about the uncovering of a wider extortion ring involving multiple officers. Vendors who had once lived in fear finally came forward, their stories combining into a powerful testimony that forced the department to confront its corruption. Supervisors were suspended, investigations expanded, and reforms demanded at the highest levels. Marcus didn't return to the food cart. His assignment was over, but the impact of what happened remained. On the street, like a scar, visible, painful, and impossible to ignore, vendors approached investigators with relief, some even in tears. Grateful that someone had finally listened, finally cared, finally stood up for Marcus. The mission had never been just about exposing a corrupt officer. It was about restoring dignity to people who had been stripped of it. It was about challenging a system that allowed injustice to hide behind authority, and it was about reminding the world that silence only protects the oppressor, never the oppressed. As he walked away from the neighborhood for the last time, he glanced back at the spot where everything began. The cart was gone, but the truth it uncovered had reshaped an entire community, and the question lingered: how many more lives could be changed? If more people dared to confront injustice instead of fearing it. Where are you watching from? Take care.